Welcome back to AgriTalk. We are in Lancaster, Pennsylvania for the National Farm City Symposium, Agriculture, A Growing Story. Well, during the break, here I am on my iPhone checking the tweets about today's broadcast. That leads me right into my next guest, Chuck Zimmerman, founding board member with AgChat Foundation. If you go to agwire.com, great way to keep up on what's going on in agriculture. Chuck is a pioneer, a leader in social media and in helping educate those in agriculture about how to use it. And Chuck, if you'll grab that microphone, I want to get your thoughts. How do we get those in production agriculture to use these forums available to them now to tell their story?
Well, I think, first of all, that is happening, and it's being driven right now a lot by various farm groups. I'll point to Farm Bureau as an example, the American Farm Bureau, all the various state farm bureaus. They have been very proactive in the last couple of years to conduct workshops for their members to teach them how to use social media channels. There are many groups doing it, National Corn Growers. We go on and on. Some of the most active that I've seen and follow are in the dairy industry through the work of DMI and others. It's just, I think we see right now what I call kind of the hot topic is what we've coined a term through this AgChat Twitter conversation, agvocating, and that is advocating for agriculture. It's what we need to do. It's what we've always done, probably mostly on a local basis. This now lets us get outside of the local boundaries. So the thing I would say is that for any farmer, if you have the time, if you have the inclination, and you would like to, then pick a mechanism, whether that's Facebook or Twitter or YouTube, and get started, because they all can kind of complement each other, but it's all about your time. So you do have to be careful about how you manage that.
Those of us that are technology challenged, such as myself, might be a little intimidated at first about getting into this. How can they kind of ease into it, if you will?
Well, again, I would go back to the fact that pick something, look at it, and get started. The other thing is just to maybe ask around and see who else they know may already be at least somewhat involved. Facebook is, in my opinion, is probably one of the better places to get started, because it is so huge, and it is such a good way to stay in touch very easily with whether it's your family members, your friends, your peers in business, and in this case, to get a message out there to people who may be following your friends, and correct some of the misinformation. One of my favorite misinformation stories was like in Chicago, a survey or something that found that consumers in the city thought these little seed corn signs out on the farms meant this farm was owned by that company. So when they'd see a Pioneer or a Monsanto or whatever sign, they had no idea. Now, who would ever think that that's what that meant, and that it's actually a promotional tool on the part of the seed company? But that is actually the kind of thing we run into, and we need to think like our city counterparts, the people who are eating the food and making use of the items that we produce.
Real quick, are we just talking to ourselves in agriculture on these social media platforms, or are we reaching consumers?
I think what you're bringing up is a good point of how do we know we're having an impact. It is a very measurable type of communication channel. We know how many followers, friends, and all that kind of stuff, views on our website, our blog, our listeners to our podcast. What does all that mean? If you look at talk radio as an example, how many people actually call in to the show they're listening to? It's a minuscule number. So you do have to realize there are probably a lot of people who are watching. We call that lurking online. They may or may not be typing in a message or sending an @reply for you Twitter people, or posting a comment on your Facebook profile. Doesn't mean they're not reading it, doesn't mean it's not having an impact. I just look at it, again, it's a conversation. If we don't join in that conversation, they're going to talk about us without us being there to defend ourselves or to correct something that may not be accurate.
That's Chuck Zimmerman, founding board member with AgChat Foundation, real pioneer with social media. We'll hear more from Chuck a little bit later. More guests to hear from as we're in Lancaster, Pennsylvania for the National Farm City Council Symposium. It's halftime on AgriTalk.